The gavel falls, the courtroom goes silent, and America's dad faces the ultimate consequence for crimes that destroyed his legacy and shattered the innocence of an entire generation. Bill Cosby, the comedian, who once represented family values and moral guidance to millions of households across the nation, now confront the possibility of spending his remaining years behind bars. The man who preached about responsibility and character while allegedly committing heinous acts in private has finally reached the end of a legal journey that has captivated and horrified the public for years. But how did we get from the beloved drawer Huxtable to this devastating moment of reckoning? What evidence was so overwhelming that it could topple one of entertainment's most powerful figures? The implications of this potential sentence extend far beyond one man's crimes to encompass questions about power, celebrity privilege, and the justice system's ability to hold the mighty accountable for their actions. William Henry Cosby Geersev was born on July 12, 1937 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, beginning a life that would take him from the housing projects of North Philadelphia to the pinnacle of American entertainment success. His early years were marked by poverty and struggle, with his father largely absent and his mother working as a maid to support the family. Cosby's introduction to comedy came during his time in the Navy, where he entertained fellow servicemen with his storytelling abilities and observational humor. After his military service, he pursued higher education at Temple University while developing his stand-up comedy career in Philadelphia's club scene. His breakthrough came in the early 1960s when he began performing at the Gaslight Cafe in New York's Greenwich Village, developing a clean, storytelling style that set him apart from the more provocative comedians of the era. This family-friendly approach would become his trademark and eventually lead to unprecedented success in television and entertainment. The release of comedy albums in the 1960s established Cosby as a major comedic talent, with recordings like I Started Out as a Child and Why Is There Air earning critical acclaim and commercial success. These albums showcased his ability to find humor in everyday family situations and childhood experiences. His transition to television began with I Spy in 1965, making him the first African American to star in a leading role in a television drama series. This groundbreaking achievement earned him 3 Emmy Awards and established him as a serious actor beyond his comedy career. The success of I Spy led to The Bill Cosby Show from 1969 to 1971, where he played Chet Kincaid, a high school physical education teacher and coach. While this series was less successful than his previous work, it demonstrated his ability to carry a television series as the lead character. Throughout the 1970s, Cosby continued developing his television presence with various projects, including the creation of Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, an animated series that promoted positive messages for children while addressing social issues affecting urban communities. His work in children's television reflected his stated commitment to education and positive role modeling, themes that would later create stark contrast with the allegations that would emerge about his private behavior during this same period. The pinnacle of Bill Cosby's career came with The Cosby Show, which premiered on NBC in September 1984 and would run for 8 successful seasons until 1992. The show revolutionized television by presenting an affluent African-American family in a positive light, breaking stereotypes and providing representation that had been largely absent from primetime television. Cosby played Drawer Heathcliff Huxtable, an obstetrician married to attorney Claire Huxtable, with 5 children. Living in a Brooklyn brownstone, the show's success was immediate and sustained, consistently ranking as the #1 television program in America for 5 consecutive years. The cultural impact of The Cosby Show extended far beyond entertainment, as it challenged prevailing stereotypes about African-American families and demonstrated the commercial viability of shows featuring predominantly black casts. The series inspired a generation of viewers and influenced countless other television programs. Behind the scenes, Cosby wielded enormous creative control over the show, serving as executive producer and having final approval over scripts, casting decisions, and overall direction. To this level of control reflected his status as one of the most powerful figures in television during the 1980s. The show's success translated into massive financial rewards for Cosby, who earned millions of dollars per episode while also benefiting from syndication rights that would generate income for decades to come. This wealth provided him with unprecedented influence, and access throughout the entertainment industry. The family-friendly image promoted by The Cosby Show became inseparable from Cosby's public persona, with many viewers seeing him as the real-life embodiment of the wise, caring father he portrayed on television. This identification would later make the criminal allegations against him particularly shocking and devastating to his fans. Throughout the height of his television success, Bill Cosby used his platform to promote education, family, values, and personal responsibility, particularly within African American communities. His speeches and public appearances often focused on the importance of education, proper English, and taking responsibility for one's actions and circumstances. This public messaging earned him respect from political leaders, educators, and community organizations, who viewed him as a positive role model and influential voice for social improvement. Universities across the country awarded him honorary degrees, and he received numerous humanitarian awards for his advocacy work. However, questions arise about the disconnect between Cosby's public persona and his alleged private behavior during this same period. Legal experts wonder whether his position of moral authority provided cover for criminal activities by making potential victims less likely to be believed if they came forward with allegations. The power and influence that came with his success created situations where Cosby had access to young women seeking opportunities in entertainment, education, or other fields where his endorsement could significantly impact their careers and futures. One has to wonder whether the moral authority and trusted public image that Cosby cultivated were deliberately constructed to provide protection and access for predatory behavior, or whether they represented genuine beliefs that he failed to live up to in his private life. The first public allegations of sexual misconduct against Bill Cosby emerged in 2005 when Andrea Constant, a former Temple University employee, filed a civil lawsuit alleging that Cosby had drugged and sexually assaulted her at his home in Pennsylvania in 2004. Constant's allegations included claims that Cosby had given her pills that he claimed would help her relax, but which left her incapacitated and unable to resist his sexual advances. This pattern of using drugs to incapacitate victims would become a recurring theme in subsequent allegations. The civil lawsuit was eventually settled out of court in 2006 for an undisclosed amount, with the settlement including a confidentiality agreement that prevented Constant from discussing the details of her allegations or the resolution of the case. During the civil proceedings, attorneys for Constant contacted numerous other women who came forward with similar allegations against Cosby, though these additional accusers were not permitted to testify in the civil case due to legal restrictions on evidence from other alleged incidents. The settlement and confidentiality agreement effectively silenced discussion of the allegations for several years, allowing Cosby to continue his career and public activities without significant impact from the big accusations that had been made against him. Legal experts note that the use of confidentiality agreements in sexual assault cases often serves to protect perpetrators from accountability while preventing victims from warning others about dangerous behavior, creating conditions that can enable continued predatory conduct. The allegations against Bill Cosby remained largely out of public attention until 2014. Made references to the sexual assault accusations during a stand-up comedy routine that was recorded and shared widely on social media platforms. Burress's comments brought renewed attention to the allegations and encouraged other women to come forward with their own stories of alleged sexual assault by Cosby. The social media attention created a snowball effect that mainstream media could no longer ignore. As more women came forward with allegations, a pattern emerged of similar stories involving Cosby, allegedly using his fame and influence to gain access to young women, often providing them with drinks or pills that left them incapacitated before sexually assaulting them. By 2015, more than 50 women had publicly accused Cosby of sexual assault, with many of the alleged incidents dating back to the 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s. During the height of his career success and cultural influence, the allegations came from women across various backgrounds and professions, including aspiring actress, models, students, and employees at organizations where Cosby had influence or access. The diversity and consistency of the allegations lent credibility to the claims. The statute of limitations had expired for most of the alleged incidents, preventing criminal prosecution in the majority of cases. However, the criminal case against Bill Cosby based on Andrea Constand's allegations went to trial twice, with the first trial in 2017 ending in a hung jury when jurors were unable to reach a unanimous verdict on the case charges of aggravated indecent assault. The second trial in 2018 resulted in Cosby's conviction on 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault, with the jury finding him guilty of drugging and sexually assaulting Constance at his home in Pennsylvania. In 2004, the conviction was significant, as it represented the first time that Cosby had been held legally accountable for the sexual assault allegations that had surrounded him for years. The verdict was seen as a victory for the Pound Me Too movement and for sexual assault survivors seeking justice. During the sentencing phase, the judge designated Cosby as a sexually violent predator, a classification that requires registration as a sex offender and regular reporting to authorities. This designation reflected the court's assessment of the risk that Cosby posed to public safety. Cosby was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in state prison, a term that many observers felt was relatively lenient given the severity of the crimes and the pattern of alleged behavior spanning decades. He was incarcerated at Cy Phoenix, a state correctional institution in Pennsylvania. The conviction and imprisonment of America's dad represented a dramatic fall from grace that few could have imagined during the height of Cosby's popularity and cultural influence in the 1980s and 1990s. In a shocking turn of events in June 2021, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned Bill Cosby's sexual assault conviction, ruling that a previous agreement with prosecutors prevented him from being charged in the case. The court found that Cosby's due process rights had been violated when he was prosecuted. Despite a previous promise of immunity, the ruling centered on an agreement made by a previous district attorney who had declined to prosecute Cosby in 2005, allegedly promising that Cosby would not face criminal charges in exchange for his testimony in the civil case filed by Andrea Constance. The Supreme Court determined that this agreement, while informal and not in writing, created a binding promise that prevented subsequent prosecution. The court ruled that Cosby's incriminating testimony in the civil case had been compelled by the promise of immunity and therefore could not be used against him in criminal proceedings. The decision to overturn the conviction and release Cosby from prison after serving nearly 3 years was met with outrage from victims' advocates and many members of the public who viewed it as a miscarriage of justice that prioritized legal technicalities over accountability for sexual assault. Legal experts were divided on the decision, with some arguing that due process protections must be upheld even in unpopular cases, while others contended that the informal nature of the alleged immunity agreement should not have prevented prosecution of serious criminal charges. The release sparked discussions about prosecutorial agreements, victim rights, and the challenges of seeking justice for sexual assault cases, particularly those involving powerful defendants with significant. The conviction and subsequent release of Bill Cosby had profound effects on his accusers, many of whom had waited decades for any form of legal accountability for the alleged assaults they suffered. Overturning of the conviction was particularly devastating for women who had viewed the guilty verdict as validation of their experiences. Andrea Constance, whose case led to the criminal conviction, expressed disappointment with the Supreme Court decision and concern that it might discourage other sexual assault victims from coming forward. Her courage in pursuing both civil and criminal cases had inspired other accusers to share their stories. The dozens of other women who had accused Cosby of sexual assault faced the reality that they would likely never see him held legally accountable for the alleged crimes against them due to statutes of limitations and the unique circumstances of the Constance case. Many accusers had suffered decades of trauma and social stigma as a result of their alleged experiences with Cosby, compounded by the challenge of accusing one of America's most beloved public figures without being believed or taken seriously. The pattern of alleged behavior described by the accusers painted a picture of systematic predatory conduct that spanned decades and affected women from various backgrounds and circumstances, suggesting a level of calculation and repeat offending that experts associate with serial sexual predators. Support groups and advocacy organizations worked to provide resources and assistance to Cosby's accusers, recognizing that the legal outcomes did not necessarily provide the healing survivors needed to move forward with their lives. The subsequent overturning of the conviction raised concerns about the legal system's ability to provide justice for sexual assault survivors, particularly in cases involving wealthy defendants with extensive legal resources and complex prosecutorial histories. The case highlighted the importance of careful prosecutorial decision-making and documentation, as informal agreements and promises can have lasting legal consequences that may prevent future accountability even when evidence of criminal behavior emerges. Legal scholars use the Cosby case to examine issues related to prosecutorial discretion, plea agreements, and the balance between due process protections and victim rights in the criminal justice system. The media coverage and public discourse surrounding the case reflected broader cultural shifts in how society views sexual assault allegations, with greater willingness to believe accusers and hold powerful figures accountable for their actions. The impact on African American communities was particularly complex, as many people struggled with reconciling their admiration for Cosby's cultural contributions with the serious nature of the allegations against him and the pattern of behavior they suggested. The financial consequences of the allegations and legal proceedings were substantial for Bill Cosby, involving millions of dollars in legal fees, settlement payments, and lost income from canceled projects and opportunities. Television networks and streaming services removed The Cosby Show and other Cosby-related content from their platforms, eliminating residual income that had provided substantial ongoing revenue for the comedian and his estate. Universities revoked honorary degrees that had been awarded to Cosby during the height of his career, with institutions seeking to distance themselves from his tarnished reputation and the allegations of criminal behavior. Corporate partnerships and endorsement deals were terminated as companies sought to avoid Cactus's association with the controversy and potential damage to their own brand reputations. The value of Cosby's entertainment properties and intellectual property was significantly diminished by the scandal, as distributors and broadcasters became reluctant to air content associated with his name and image. Real estate holdings and other investments were also affected as Cosby faced mounting legal expenses and the loss of income sources that had previously provided financial security and lifestyle maintenance. The entertainment industry's response to the Cosby allegations reflected broader changes in how the industry addresses allegations of sexual misconduct and criminal behavior by prominent figures. Studios, networks, and production companies implemented new policies and procedures for addressing allegations of misconduct, including more robust reporting mechanisms and faster responses to credible accusations. The concept of separating art from artists became a subject of intense debate, with various organizations taking different approaches to handling content created by individuals accused. Industry organizations and unions increased their focus on creating safer working environments and providing support for individuals who experience harassment or assault in entertainment workplace settings. The case influenced casting decisions, project development, and partnership agreements as industry professionals became more conscious of the potential legal and reputational risks associated. Training programs and awareness initiatives were expanded to educate industry professionals about recognizing and addressing sexual misconduct, with particular attention to power dynamics that can enable predatory behavior. The long-term impact of the Bill Cosby case on American culture and society continues to evolve as conversations about sexual assault, celebrity accountability, and justice system reform persist in public discourse. The case contributed to broader discussions about institutional failures that enable sexual predators to continue offending, including the role of enablers, the silencing effect of non-disclosure agreements, and the challenges faced by victims in seeking justice. Educational institutions and community organizations have used the case as a teaching tool for discussions about consent, healthy relationships, and the importance of believing and supporting sexual assault survivors. The Cosby legacy presents ongoing challenges for fans and cultural historians who must grapple with the contributions made by The Cosby Show to television and representation, while acknowledging the serious criminal allegations against its star. Research into sexual assault and predatory behavior has been influenced by the patterns revealed in the Cosby case, contributing to better understanding of how serial offenders operate and the long-term impacts on their victims. The possibility of federal prosecution based on interstate or international aspects of alleged criminal conduct remains a subject of legal speculation, though the practical challenges of pursuing such cases decades after alleged incidents are substantial. Civil litigation continues in various jurisdictions as accusers seek financial compensation in public acknowledgement of the harm they suffered, though the success of such cases depends on complex legal factors, including statutes of limitations and evidence preservation. The Cosby estate and business interests remain subject to ongoing legal and financial challenges as the full scope of his alleged criminal behavior and its consequences continue to be examined and litigated. Questions arise about what additional evidence or testimony might emerge as investigations continue, and whether other individuals who enabled or covered up Cosby's alleged behavior might face their own legal consequences. The lessons learned from the Cosby case continue to influence legal, cultural, and social approaches to addressing sexual assault and holding powerful individuals accountable for their actions regardless of their status or contributions to society. The ultimate resolution of all legal and cultural questions related to Bill Cosby may take years to achieve, but the case has already fundamentally changed conversations about power, privilege, and justice in American society. The ongoing efforts of survivors and advocates to seek accountability and prevent similar abuses reflect the lasting impact of their courage in coming forward despite the personal costs and challenges they faced in confronting one of America's most powerful entertainment figures. If you're as stunned by the complete destruction of Bill Cosby's legacy as we are, go ahead and like this video. Drop your thoughts in comments. How do you reconcile the positive cultural impact of The Cosby Show with the serious criminal allegations against its star? Do you think the justice system, adequately address the allegations, or should there be additional accountability? We want to hear your perspective on this complex case that challenged everything we thought we knew about America's dad. Then hit subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss our coverage of celebrity scandals and the ongoing fight for justice in high-profile cases. Thanks for watching.